Hello and welcome. Right, this is just a test. I'm testing out a new widget. And there it is. You can see the purple sector showing the time 0. Race hasn't started yet. My tire widget is on the right hand side. Okay, so the new widget, the idea is quite simple. Show the car in front, the car behind, show their last lap time, show the delta for you and the drivers, right? The guy before you and the guy behind you, show their delta as well. And as the laps go by, push the delta into these small rectangle slits that you see, color coded to whether they were faster or slower than the previous lap. That's the idea. Now, in order to do comparisons, you need 2 laps at the minimum. And also, when you go around and you get your delta, you're dependent on the game supplying you that data, supplying you the delta data, and supplying the best lap and so on. So what I'm doing now is I've coded the widget to a certain level, and now I'm testing to see if I'm getting the right data, if there's something wrong with that data, if the timing is wrong, and so on. And there's a lot of variables to consider here. For example, the direction of these laps, the last 5 laps, is it descending or ascending order? Does it make sense if I go faster than the previous lap that it pushes it to the right, and then the color is green and the previous color is red? But what if the previous color was green to the previous lap, right? So it's relative. I'm not sure if that's going to be visually understandable, visually interpreted correctly. It might need to say, not be relative. It might need to be relative to the 5 laps. Perhaps across 5 laps, each of the bars shows you whether it's less, whether it's faster or slower than the average of that 5 laps. So I'm yet to lock that down and see exactly what that is. The other thing you'll see where it says not applicable NA, that is the distance, the gap in time between you and the car in front, or the you and the car behind. I'm interested to see that number because I'm getting that number probably once every, or twice, 3 times every second. And the number is continuously different and being calculated based on the distance between you and the other car. But that is relative to the position that you're on the track as well. Otherwise, I've got no sense of time, no sense of distance, and so on. So the calculation may be off. The calculation is something I need to look at. But also in-game, I get the sense that that distance is updated periodically, maybe every 5 seconds or something like that. I haven't studied it yet, and mine is being updated 2-3 times a second, so it may look different. And also the polling information is not always 100% accurate to what you see in the HUD. So in game it may be reflecting a value, but it's giving off, sending out information, more information, additional information, wrong information. I don't know yet. This API for ACC is not perfect. For example, just a small example, when you get a lap time, you don't know what lap number it is, right? So if I connect to the game and it's on lap 3, there's no way that I'll know that that's lap 3. I'll know that there's a current lap and I'll know what that is, and the previous lap time, but I won't know what lap I'm currently on. And that makes a difference depending on the number of cars and which cars have been lapped. Because if they've been lapped, then they're not on the current lap time. And it seems as if at the moment that the current lap is just the current lap from the lead car. when the lead car goes over that line, that value changes, even though I have just started my lap. Right ahead of him, but a lap behind. Okay, so this is part of the testing and why it's important to have a look at everything.
Going double fine.
Okay, so there's no guarantee that any of this is going to work now. I may even get a breakpoint in code. I've got the debugger on as well. If I see values, no values whatsoever coming through, and I'm sort of looking at the tire widget at the moment, looking at brake temperatures and things like that to tell, because if I get no values coming through that, then quite clearly, like there, you see everything 0, it means it's not connected in some way. And I haven't got my polling. I haven't set up my polling to the point where it reconnects if it fails, and so on. And because it's in the debugger, sometimes I just end the app because I need to change some code or something, and then it loses its connection, or the socket is open. The game thinks that it's already connected, and it doesn't let me reconnect and things like that. And my widget doesn't reconnect after that. At the moment, it's a work in progress. Right now, I'm just trying to get the design of the widgets with data as best as I can while I'm learning about the data points and the nuances of it. There are two things that I'm looking at. One is shared memory, where different events give off different things, such as graphic updates, physics updates, things like that. And the other is the broadcast API, which is UDP. And in that case, it gives off, in some cases, the same, but different data. The broadcast data is more about all the cars, right? All, where they are positioned on the spline, on the track, is represented as a spline, position on spline, the name of the drivers, things like that. Whereas the shared memory is purely, well, it looks, take nothing that I say as truth. It's just what I'm learning so far, and some of it may be wrong. But it seems as if the shared memory is purely to do with you as a player, as a driver. Whereas the broadcast is you as a player, but in a collection within an array or a list of other drivers and so on. Okay, so you can see right now the widget is showing 0 for everything. I am considering maybe putting the running time on there. We'll see how that goes. It's not showing distances where it plausibly could, I think, at this stage, show distance to the car head. So that's something to look at. At the moment, I've got one function to render all that data, and it's basically looking for lap times, finished laps and things. So I'm going to split that function out into different bits so I can render different bits. Okay, so that's a refactoring task for later. Okay. Now I'm seeing absolutely no data coming through at all. I expected to see my time. I'm just going to pull over, have a look. I haven't shared the code screen with you at the moment. Just technical things, not because I'm trying to hide it or anything. Just want to see if data's coming through correctly. I'm not getting anything. Okay, so this is possibly lost its UDP connection. Just going to restart it and then see. Okay, I seem to have a connection now. Okay, I need to just put that back on screen for you. Tire widget first. There we go. And this timing screen back into ops. There we go. So you should see some data now. Okay, so now that I'm behind, and I've lost the lap, of course. I wasn't reading that data. So the API doesn't actually give you, whether it's shared memory or the broadcasting UDP packets, none of it actually tells you whether you know older data, right? It's live data that's firing, right? And if you're not there to listen, you're not there to listen. It's quite simple as that. It's not going to be storing previous lap times and data. So at this point, according to the widget, I'm on a lap 1, but it has a list of laps, and currently that list is empty because I have not completed this lap. Okay, now also some of the unknowns for me, at least at this point, is that because I didn't cross over the start-finish line, and because my car was sitting on the side, does that have any effect at all in terms of what the data points are, you know, in terms of what they're being thrown out? To me, listening, I'm not sure exactly what I'm getting. That's the kind of testing that I'm talking about. Now, that's fine detail testing, which I'm slowly working towards, but at the moment it's more about the visual and the feel and the intuition of what's going on. So there we go. Ellis ahead of me has crossed over the line, and you can see that he was on his delta. His last lap was green. So I think the API data was showing at least the last lap and the current lap when he crossed the line. So therefore there are 2 items in my array. So therefore I could compare and I could place that green bar. Mine's gone red. I'm slower than my first lap. So it did hold on to my first lap, which when I restarted the app, it didn't have that information anymore. It was cleared. But because the data points have got last lap, I was able to take that last lap and put that in the list. Okay, now currently you'll see the larger green section at the end of the bar, just where it says 2:13:13 over there. And I've noticed the bug there. 2:13:13, 3:07:07. It's highly unlikely that the 13 was repeated. So this might just be a minor little issue on my side, a copy and paste thing, my time formatting, something like that, where I'm just using the wrong value. I think that's what's going on there. Okay, so now we're on a delta of 7 seconds to gain on that time. So I'm going to expect this lap to render a green bar. There's a green bar from Ellis ahead of me. Okay, so my bar should go green. Now, where should it go green? Now, if you think about it from your point of view, where you think it should go, left side of that red bar, on the right-hand side of the red bar, right? So because the larger section showing green, my delta, looks like a T, right, lying on its side, because that is my current lap, to me, I wanted to put the bar right next to it as being the last lap. So you'll see the green has shifted and the red has shifted, pushed it up. So that's my thought on the matter, but I don't know if that's intuitive enough for others. And this is the kind of thing with software, is developers sit and we build up a certain intuition about what we're doing, what we think we know, what the data is giving us, and how it's giving it to us. So we make up our minds based on whether we understand that. And often the abstraction that we're using, the API, the data, the naming even, the architecture, how they present the data, give you the data, all that kind of stuff leads you to design aligned with what their ideas were. So it's obvious that if their model looks a certain way, you're going to make sure that yours continues. That's very common in software development practices. But then you take it to a user, and the user goes, well, what's going on there? That's confusing. It's because their intuitions come from real world. Their intuitions come from things that they're actually doing in life. Perhaps pen and paper, notepads, desks, meetings. The intuition is entirely different. Our intuition comes from data structures, APIs, endpoints, structures. Entirely different intuition. That's one of the gaps between business and technical. Okay, that's for a different live stream. Apologize for that. Back to the widget. Okay, we're gonna get. I can stay on track. No, I can't. Okay, so this is an invalid lap. I'm not showing invalid laps yet. So that's also something I have to consider. Where do I put that? Because if I do pass the line now with green delta, which I'm going to do, then it's going to look green. And technically that was an invalid lap. So now the question is, should I show that as an invalid lap? Would it be helpful? Possibly. As a green delta is surely inaccurate in terms of whether it was a clean lap. However, I did cross the line with a green delta, and so therefore it's accurate from that perspective. And that's got to do with that intuition I was talking about as well. What is your intuition about what it should or shouldn't look like? And that's why feedback is so important. I'm thinking showing both would be possible if I had a striped green. So let's say it was green and black striped instead of pure green. Then I'll say, oh, something's wrong there. And if it was red and was striped, it will show an invalid lap and you didn't cross the line. So maybe that is a possibility. The idea of this whole screen, I mean the whole point of it really, is to give you a sense of how you're doing on track. So the purple time, 2:07 compared to your 2:10, and you can see that bug is definite, right? 2:07:07, 2:10:10, 2:12:12, well that's a bug. So, but it gives you a sense of your time versus the two cars around you and the best time. Right, so that's the sort of first level of understanding that it's giving you, because I don't really get that in the game by default, right? You don't really understand that, and you never really get the best lap time. I know who, but I don't know what that time was. So now I know what to aim for. I also know what to aim for in terms of the cars around me because of their last time. Okay. So I know the guy behind me did a 2:10. Oh, he's sitting in the pits right now, so it doesn't really matter, but that's why his He's not crossing the line anymore, so that's why his bars are not filling up. Also recording this because I might not notice everything as it's happening, and I think I saw something, but I'm not sure what. But something happened now. I think that gradient that I have for the delta on the bar needs to be a little bit more translucent there. It's too much of a solid line. You can see it next to the 12 and the 11 of the time. It just cuts off like that. I want to blend it in. It'll look nicer if it's blended in. But also perhaps not so far out. Might be width-wise made a bit less than that. Okay, there you can see that did work. Okay, so let's... Got a good start to the lap, but let's see if we can do a green lap. Whoops. It's pretty easy to beat, so even though that mistake, I'm still 2.8 up. So we should have a green, and then I want to see a green bar next to my delta bar, shifting the red bars up. Whoopsie. And I should get that last red bar should be pushed off. Should be. Let's hope that I got that right. There we go. Okay. I saw a flash from Rothberg there ahead of me, but nothing should... Oh, it's in the pits. Okay, so that is interesting. I don't think showing pit status is relevant for this widget, but that's what happened there. Kind of is relevant in a sense, isn't it? Because the guy's gone in the pits. Maybe it wasn't for anything bad. Maybe he's just refueling, right? And it's a mandatory stop for everyone. And in that case, you want to know he's in the pits. Oh, in that case, I might want to know. Okay, I can tell the gap, so that's good. Oh dear. I can see the gap. And he's out the pits. No, he's not. He's gone behind me now. Retire? But then I see his bar has increased. Something is not right there. I'm going to have to study that. What these bars are supposed to be giving you is an intuition of whether you are catching the car or whether somebody's catching you, whether you're doing a relatively good job or not. And one of the problems with the Delta color coding it red and green is that it's not really telling you how good you're doing. I mean, maybe it's only 100ths off, but it shows as red. And in that case, technically, it's consistent, right? So if you do a spectacular lap, from then onwards, if you do a good lap and then another good lap and another good lap, it could still be red, 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 red. It's always 100ths off the previous one, which kind of does mean you're getting slower. So in a way, it kind of helps you. It's not the whole story, which is what I'm kind of thinking about here. The whole story would be is it a good green lap? Is it a good red lap? Is it only 100ths off for consistency marks? Maybe there's a way I can show that. For example, let's say it went white when it was consistent. Okay. Now, that means it would go white only if the lap time was within 100th or a 10th or whatever. Maybe that's a setting, I don't know. But maybe that's a way of saying, okay, so I'm driving consistently. Now, if it's green, it will be green because it's greater than 100 milliseconds faster than your previous lap time, it'll go green. And if it's within 100, it'll go white. Maybe something like that. I have to see if that's helpful. It says I've got a purple lap there. So even though the time is wrong at the bottom, in-game is 207.5 and I've got 207.07, so that's my bug. But it has red, the purple sector, best session time, and applied it and attributed it to me. There it is. So that part's working. In game, it says I'm 27 seconds behind, and in my widget, it's saying 23, 24, 25. It's much more dynamic because I'm sampling much more frequently. Because the sampling is frequent, if he's in a break zone, then I'm going to be catching up. So it's more responsive. Lots of things going through my head. Should I not be updating in corners? Should I not be updating when you're less than 50 kilometers an hour? Something like that. means any very slow braking zones would be excluded, and it won't look as if you're suddenly very close when you're not. I could also start averaging it rather than, but I like my approach. I think in game it's showing you an average or a sample. I'm not sure which, but it could be. Actually, I think it's an interval. I think at a set interval, it's then checking what the gap is. There could be more sophistication to it. That's what it seems like. What I could do is experiment with the speed of the car. Thing is, if you slow down to a stop, then I'm not going to be updating your time. That wouldn't be good. Okay, I think that gives me some information. That gives me some information to look at. I know I've got to look at something with the gap. I've got to look at the gradient for the delta, and I've got to look at that bug with the time. I'm going to do that. I'm going to refactor some code, clean some stuff up, and I'll present another stream when I've got an update for it. Thanks very much. Hope that was interesting to you.